All right, well, thank you very much. I'm Jenny, and I was on the course last year. Thanks for picking my session this morning. I know there was lots of different choices, so it's good to see you. I'm hoping that you find the next 20 minutes interesting. Just a caveat before we get started, it's more of an idea, this. It's not a polished piece of research that I'm definitely saying is kind of correct. It's just sharing with you an idea that we've had at Alumni, and to just see your reaction, feedback, kind of what you think of it. The main topic is basically reframing the energy trilemma. The energy trilemma. So you're okay to think the way that we're presenting this now is what we think we would reframe it as, but it's totally fine to suggest a totally different way of doing it, or actually say, I like the trilemma and let's just leave it alone. So that's the kind of the main topic. But before we get started, it'd probably just be useful to give a bit of background on why I'm standing here talking about it and how it kind of came about. So, as I said, I was on the course last year, and we were based here at the ECCI, and met lots of different people through the course, which was fab, and one of them being a guy called Ian Marchant, who was CEO of SSE for about 10 years, and then stepped down a couple of years ago, but is still really interested in the energy field, and so was one of the guys who set up the 2020 climate group, who was based here at the ECCI, and some of us did internships for and kind of got to know them. So I was chatting to him about the research I was doing for my dissertation, and he was quite interested in that. And since retiring, he's set up a little company called Dunelm Energy, and it transpired that he needed some research done for him. So said, do you fancy doing that? And I said, yes, that would be fantastic, thank you. So joined him in September, and I've been working there for about 6 months. So this is, the notion of this kind of concept is born out of the fact that we really focus a lot of our time and effort looking at the demand side of the energy industry in Dunelm. We're really excited about what's happening there as the energy system transitions to, as we all know, much more low carbon, distributed kind of state. So we want people to be talking about the demand side much more, and realizing the importance and potential influence that it has in addressing a lot of the problems that we're going to be facing when we transition to this new age. So if we start with the trilemma that we all know and love, I'm sure, and know all about, so I won't dwell too long on it, but it's kind of the starting place of this. So we've got the points sustainability, security, and affordability, as you know. And it's really our kind of view that naturally enough, the energy system has developed through the generation side of the industry. And so we've always been able to historically match our supply to demand. So when, for example, there's lots of need for heating in the winter or lighting, we've historically used our generation to match that. We've increased the fuels that we're burning in our gas plants, or when I was speaking to James yesterday about Norway, I didn't realise that 96% of all their electricity comes from hydro. But the point is, when we have an imbalance in the system, we use supply to balance that out. So naturally enough, this trilemma, we believe, reflects that historic industry, that very supply-side orientated industry. If you take sustainability, for example, the conversation often kind of revolves around, are we going to build generation that's low carbon or high carbon? So is it going to be wind farms or solar panels? It's very supply-side orientated. Similarly, with security, the conversation's often about how secure is the capacity margin. And affordability, often we talk about how cheap or expensive is it to make a unit of electricity to supply that. So it's really our feeling that this only actually covers half of the story. There's a whole other side, which is the demand side, and really that needs to be incorporated into the conversation, because as we know, this trilemma has been incredibly useful and important for policymakers making decisions, clarifying the implications of the different direction that their policy is going to take. It's going to potentially, when you address sustainability, it pulls and affects the different points here. So we're not saying that this trilemma isn't useful. It has been incredibly useful. Every other paper that I pick up, the first sentence is talking about how we're going to address the energy trilemma. But it's very supply-side orientated, and so we want to think about how you could potentially reframe it to more accurately reflect how the energy industry is going to be changing into the future. So this is where a demand-side trilemma potentially would be useful and comes in. So these are the 3 points that we've come up with. Not saying that they're 100% correct at all. Really interested to see what you guys think and what you put on your trilemma. But if I just sort of give you a bit of background on why we've got meeting of needs, convenience, and affordability, and then we can have a chat about, as I say, what you'd put on yours. So the first point, convenience. For me, this is really kind of the bottom line of what your everyday person wants in an everyday activity. It's all about simplicity, ease, convenience. I guess if you take food, for example, you can go into the supermarket now and buy pre-peeled, pre-chopped carrots that you can have straight away with your hummus, or you can get a full-on meal that just takes a matter of minutes or seconds to heat up. So it's very convenient. That's clearly very important to customers and what they demand. And exactly the same it's exactly the same with energy. We flick the light switch on and we know that the lights are going to come on. We change our boilers, the thermostat on our boiler, and even we can do it now remotely on our phones. So it's just very convenient when we know immediately that the boiler is either going to fire up or shut down. And when we start our cars, usually they tend to start. So I think clearly customers really value convenience. So that's what we've put on one of our points of the trilemma. Secondly, we've got meeting of needs. So I actually would have called this comfort, but I kind of lost the battle of words. And if Ian was here presenting this, he would have meeting of needs. I would maybe put on comfort. But nevertheless, what we're trying to get at is the point that the absolute amount of energy that we demand is important, as opposed to timing. So that's the point before with convenience. This is about the absolute amount. So I don't know about you, but I don't really know what a kilowatt hour of electricity is or a therm of gas. I can't really visualize what that is. What I really want is to charge my phone, turn the lights on, have a hot shower, cook an evening meal. So what we're trying to say here is that's what we demand, not an arbitrary kilowatt hour. But the problem is I have no idea how much I pay for each of these services individually. If I'm lucky, I get a bill that's kind of aggregated every month, but often it's quarterly or yearly. We don't really know how much it costs to meet our needs. But so while smart metering is going to help that and kind of increase our knowledge of what's going on in the home, it's not going to tell us what we're spending our money on. It's just going to tell us when. So we've still got this problem that we need to address effectively. And so because of that problem of not really knowing what we're consuming, we tend to overcompensate for it. So to make sure that we 100% of the time we're meeting our needs and keeping ourselves comfortable, we overconsume. So it's kind of wasteful. So really we think that in framing the policy side of the debate, we need to address that and clarify kind of how to solve that side of the trilemma. I think one of the kind of easiest places to see or an example to think about when we do this is setting our thermostats with central heating. So I wonder kind of next winter what percentage of the time we're going to have our heating on when actually no one's at home at all. We just want to make sure that when we get home, we will be warm. But actually, you could be getting home an hour later or an hour earlier. So there's really a mismatch in dealing with meeting our needs. And then the third point is affordability. So I think it's fair to say that most of us are pretty aware of and kind of concerned with how much stuff costs. And you'll notice that this point is also on the supply side trilemma, which I think is quite useful because it really illustrates how much the supply and the demand need to kind of work together. They need to be fully integrated. The system and the energy system needs to be considering both of them in conjunction with each other. So this point kind of brings the two together. And here we really think that you need to be starting to talk about all three of the bills we have in aggregate. So you've got your power, your heating fuel, and your transport fuel. But when you get an electric car, for example, or if some of you already have one, you'll know that your power bill is going up, but what you're paying at the pump is going down. So we really need to start thinking about these two things all together. So there we have it, the demand-side trilemma sitting alongside the supply-side trilemma. You'll notice that we've got three different points that all pull and compete, and it's difficult to address all of them in conjunction with each other, just as we do with the old trilemma. So it's going to be difficult when, for example, meeting of needs and convenience, they're going to clash when the electricity network just physically can't deliver enough energy. Or there'll be questions around, can I afford to meet all my needs? And increasingly, I think it will be important to understand the desire for convenience and control and wanting to know when you're using your energy. How does that then impact on the affordability? Is it going to make it cheaper, or is it going to make it more expensive? So these are the kind of main questions that we think policymakers should be considering when we're talking about this new future of the energy system, not just sustainability, security, and affordability, but we need to bring in this whole other side that reflects the demand side and really helps them understand the implications of the different policy decisions they're making and the impact of the different decisions and kind of routes that they'll potentially be making to try and deal with this transition that we're going through. So the two trilemmas, they sit beside each other, alongside each other, and we feel that they need to have an equal weighting put on them. If you focus too much on one of the points, or even just one of the trilemmas on its own, as we know, they're going to pull against each other, and it's going to be pretty counterproductive for the whole system kind of as a whole, potentially even damaging if you're just really fixated with addressing one of these points as opposed to all of them and understanding how they all interrelate and connect. But so hopefully you're not thinking this is kind of overcomplicating an already complex decision. We're sort of hoping that actually this helps to clarify the key issues and the key things that we, or people who seek to influence policymakers or policymakers themselves and decision makers need to be thinking about going forward. So here we've got demand and supply, customers and the kind of bigger players in the industry both represented alongside each other together. And yeah, it's these issues that we think policymakers need to start grappling with. And we'd like to see a time where as much money, effort, and kind of attention is placed on the demand side, as, for example, was on the recent EMR process and kind of reforming the market. That's it. So we were lucky enough to present this first over in Glasgow, and then we actually went down to the House of Commons, and we had, I forget the energy minister who hosted us, but that was an interesting day, and to kind of see what people thought of it. But that was a wee while ago now, so I don't really know what the next steps are. It might just be an interesting thing that we suggest and doesn't go too much further, but a lot of the work that we do and the SMEs that we work with and the kind of disruptive technologies that we see coming through really reflect the demand side, and you've got storage in there as well, and all that's coming through to kind of impact the system-wide changes. And so I think it would be quite useful to start talking about how that's going to impact in general, and kind of think about the different decisions that are going to come through. But what would you put on your demand side trilemma? As I said, I would have put comfort probably. I don't think meeting of needs is a very user-friendly term. I think it needs some explanation. I think comfort's probably easier to understand. The reason there kind of that we didn't do that was because I think it was to do with comfort not representing kind of holistically what we want from our energy services. And so it just represented maybe our basic needs, but actually when we use energy, we have our basic needs, but we also have luxury needs, or it's not just comfortability that we're doing. We use energy for communication, transportation, etc., etc. So the point of using that one is kind of to get across that broad theme. And then with convenience, we actually used to have flexibility there. And again, when I think of flexibility, I think of the supply side again, and how we're going to be trying to flex demand to meet supply, whereas the whole point of this is actually to flip that on its head and think about demand first, as opposed to using that demand to match supply. So yeah. Yeah.
Jenny, great presentation. I think just sort of looking at your trilemma, for the medium needs, I think, like I know certainly from my own flat, if I have the temperature on at 20 degrees on a sunny day, it actually goes above 20 degrees, but the radiators actually shut off automatically. So I think that actually this is already happening, certainly in again, it's sort of smart technology, if you like. So I definitely would see that as being a really key part. But for the convenience, I don't know, do you look at maybe predictive tools, because convenience is like, the system doesn't know I'm going to do it, I'm just going to do it now because I've decided to do it in this very moment. So is there some sort of way that you can sort of predict demand? I know there already are, first, you know, if there's a game on, or EastEnders ends, or whatever, the cup of tea that you have, that kind of stuff, but can you do that all throughout the 24-hour cycle of a day, or?
So that's becoming much more challenging, and you'll see technology, market design, and resource efficiency. These are kind of enablers that we've suggested that will help to address these different challenges. So what you're saying, definitely smart technology, predictive data analytics, remote diagnostics, that kind of stuff is exploding. There's exponential growth in that area, and that would come under our technology there. So yeah, those things are definitely already happening, already coming into play, but aren't being represented in the energy trilemma, and is one of the huge major macro trends that we see in the energy industry now, but just aren't being talked about, I guess, at the high level. So often the implications of these things and of the ability to do that isn't being understood and at the system level. And you've got really exciting kind of developments where you could take an aggregated amount of demand response, for example, and actually bring that into the system side and use it with National Grid, with balancing the actual system itself. So yeah, there's definitely lots of potential there to kind of bridge the two together, for sure.
Did you ever discuss sustainability being a plan?
Yeah, we did. But we kind of thought probably for all of us, totally. But when you go out there for the general public, actually, I think the feeling was definitely needs to be in the trilemma, but probably not at the demand side. Oh.
I feel like meeting of needs and convenience, they're different things, but I feel like there's kind of an overlap there. Like
yeah.
I want to meet all my energy needs, but I don't really want to tire myself. I want it all to be convenient.
Yeah.
I want it. And I feel like sustainability could definitely feature where meeting of needs is, and kind of meeting of needs and convenience could be
merged together.
Because I like comfort.
Yeah.
The way you said it, because for me it represents both the fact that I will get what I want, and that it will not really, you know, it's predictable, and
yeah.
I'll get it when I need it.
Yeah, I do agree. I think what we're trying to say there is that the absolute amount of energy we're using is different from the timing of it, but very, very similar points, and definitely do like interlink loads. So yeah.
Where does a theme such as access to energy, which is a much bigger issue in the developing world, where does that sit? Is that in meeting the needs or in affordability, or somewhere between the two?
I think you probably hit a big limitation of this on the head with regards to this is probably reflecting much more the developed world as opposed to developing. And actually maybe that's kind of where we could bring together the meeting of needs and convenience and bring in another point that actually reflects, as you say, access to energy in the first place. This is probably, this I think is fair to say is assuming that you do have access to energy, whereas actually that's not a fair assumption to make at all. And yeah, that should feature. Yeah.
I mean, traditionally developed countries, that original trilemma has kind of met the demand side.
Yes.
It's never really had, at least in Britain, very rarely had limits to supply.
Yeah.
So what do you think's changed that's caused the need for this second trilemma to come? I mean, is it increased large-scale renewables in the grid that aren't as reliable as baseload, or is it the increase in microgeneration, so then National Grid doesn't know how much is going to come into the system from households?
Yeah, I think at its core we feel that there's like an obsession really with trying to fix supply, and there's really just a neglect, just ignoring the fact that demand has such an important, influential role to play. So yeah, the reason that I think this has come about is because we're becoming much more distributed, much more low carbon, much less. We're not able to control the fuel effectively. That's what we've been able to do for the last century, and so that's been fine. That's how we balance the system. But yeah, with regards to realizing that that's totally changing, we've got this massive asset base effectively, and increasingly so that could come and help meet that, and address our sustainability and address our security. Yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah. So I mean, in that kind of sense, then, so if you've got microgeneration households, which would be more. So I know it's the supply side, but I treat that more as the demand side because it's your household end user.
Yeah, you're generating. Yeah, that's true.
Where would you actually sit that?
In there? I don't know. I'd have to think about that. It's addressing sustainability. It's addressing convenience because it's in your home right there. It's potentially addressing affordability if the payback is less than 5 years. It's addressing security because. So I think it's probably it's kind of representing both sides there. Yeah.
Maybe a bit of a comment on my question, but I'm just wondering if, because sustainability's features on the supply side,
Yeah.
whether sustainability is almost covered in the affordability section for the demand side, because
Yeah.
if you're using it more efficiently, then it can become more affordable.
Yeah.
And sort of efficiency is maybe more of a sustainability aspect from the demand side than
Yeah.
supply.
So we did have meeting of needs again. Even prior to that, we had efficient use of services or something like that. So we were really trying to get efficiency into it because, as you say, it's so crucial to addressing affordability, sustainability. But it just got too complex with the wording and stuff. But yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I was just wondering how big of an issue you've seen. I mean, one of the kind of key trade-offs for me is that if you push so hard for the affordability side, that you then get to the point where meeting of needs and convenience is no longer sustainable. So it's essentially like a rebound effect.
Yeah.
So if you keep pushing for affordability, then people actually lose interest in how much energy they're using because it's so cheap.
Yeah, true. Yeah. So I think that's kind of the beauty of the trilemma, is trying to represent the fact that if you do focus all your efforts on one of these points, it's going to have counterproductive, damaging implications for the rest of the system and the rest of the points. Yeah. Any more questions? Yeah.
I was wondering, there's a sort of big rollout of smart metering that's
Yeah.
going on in the UK at the moment.
Yeah.
How do you think that'll sort of affect this balance? Do you think that'll help with the sort of the new technology and help the market maybe evolve a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it definitely will help it a bit. I think actually it's a bit of a shame and it's kind of a wasted opportunity because the smart meters are smart. They're kind of dumb, unfortunately, and that's just the way that it is. You know, technology is increasing exponentially every year, and so when you make a policy decision, and poor policymakers are doing the best they can at that time, but 2 years down the line, actually now we've got two-way interconnection, and yeah, smart meters are great for showing us what we're consuming and when we're consuming it. But if we can't then react to that with a price signal or half-hourly metering, it's a bit of a shame. So I think it will go some way to addressing this for sure, but I think we've got a long way to go further than that with like data analytics and all the power that we can use there and communications. Yeah.
It's more of a question related to the impact of electric vehicles in particular.
Yeah.
And how that would fit into the equation in terms of how you would then I mean, has there been any analysis done on what sort of growth trends for electric vehicles are and how that would impact on the grid mix and whether we have any chance of meeting that?
Yeah, so I think that there are definitely some, I think, low carbon funded network studies that are going into looking at like hotspots, and so once one person gets an electric car, then chances are the community are going to find out about that. You're going to chat to your neighbours. That's going to kind of roll and create a localized problem for the network. So DNOs and TSOs are super interested in that. And what was the first bit? Electric cars. I was reading just on Friday. The Carbon Brief had a thing come out from, I think it was the IEA, saying there's like, I think there's 19 different technologies that we need to that need to be on a certain track to meet 2020 emission targets, and electric vehicles was the only one that was actually delivering what it was needed to in that time, and everything else was kind of either off course or not doing as well. So I was quite surprised to read that. I know it's not really in the UK, it's more China, Norway, Netherlands, and I can't remember the fourth one. But yeah, so I don't think we're seeing that as much in the UK, but for sure I think we will more so. Do you think we should try and get more people talking about it, or nah, let's just leave the trilemma as it is? I guess people who think we should try and it's a helpful thing to do and it's going to be useful, put your hand up. Or, yay! Cool. Well, I've got some leaflets if anyone wants them. I've only got like 8. But if you do want any more information, I can send that through to you. I think a conversation about it would be useful. Well,
you talked about that you presented at the House of Commons.
Yeah.
The Scottish government and Parliament.
Yeah. So what's quite useful is Ian obviously has a lot of connection with different people, and so we had spoken to Fergus Ewing about it, and Chris Stark as well, with regards to the kind of future planning and their strategy with regards to energy. But then we had the elections, and there was kind of a shake-up, and he was on purgatory, or you can't speak to people for like a month. Purga, yeah. So yeah, we have, and the Scottish government have been super responsive. I don't know how kind of. I don't know whether they'll take it forward, but I think that's definitely a good place to start, and they're much more accessible and potentially useful, and like being ahead of the game. And look, we've reframed this. Let's focus on this side, and then so yeah, I think that'll be it's definitely a useful conversation. But yeah.
Have you done any other sort of stakeholder dialogue, such as with industry, about it? Because I mean, we're talking about it on households here.
Yes.
Industry is a big user of energy, and for them, they need a pretty constant supply most of the time at as low price as possible.
Yes.
So they're kind of a bit differently affected by sort of renewables and things coming in. So
yeah. No, we haven't actually spoken to them. That would be good. I think my feeling would be that they would still be mostly focused on the supply side, because that kind of represents larger industry players. But no, as you say, they do demand energy. They don't generate it themselves. So yeah, that would also be a useful thing to do. Cool. I don't know what the time is. I think I like rattled through that in like 10 minutes. So I don't know how much time I have.
It's almost 30 minutes.
Oh, cool. Yeah. All right. Well, if you want a hashtag about it, I don't really know what that means, but please feel free. Yeah. Thanks.